families of Sandy Hook victims have rejected a desperate attempt by Alex Jones to settle their defamation lawsuit against him. Now, he offered them what I would argue is a tiny amount of money, and they got together and every single one of them said, no way. Let me give you the details. Jones offered to give each plaintiff $120,000, which the families unanimously rejected. In court filings, they said the offer was a transparent and desperate attempt by Alex Jones to escape a public reckoning under oath with his deceitful, profit-driven campaign against the plaintiffs and the memory of their loved ones lost at Sandy Hook. Now, this is a story we've been following. Alex Jones decided to, engage in some of the most horrific defamatory content, calling the Sandy Hook massacre a hoax, referring to parents who lost their children as crisis actors. And what did that lead to? It led to all sorts of audience members harassing these individuals, harassing these people who lost their own children. There's the Posner family. They had to move 7 times because of the credible death threats they were dealing with. In fact, some members of Alex Jones's audience had to deal with prosecution as a result of the threats that they were directing toward the families of these Sandy Hook victims. I mean, it's just, keep in mind, like that massacre left 28 people dead, 2 injured, okay? There were 18 children, innocent children, who died as a result of that. And you have Alex Jones profiting off of his defamatory content in regard to these families. Now, also, offering them $120,000 is a joke, especially when you look at how much Alex Jones profits from his garbage programming. Here's a recent headline from Rolling Stone. Alex Jones raked in $165 million over 3 years selling supplements and prepper gear. Can I just say, listen, I get the desire to be healthy. Everyone wants like a magic cure for whatever ails them. And sometimes those commercials for those whatever supplement can be very enticing. I would just take a good hard look at the sweaty tooth madman who's shilling for these supplements. Like, I don't look at Alex Jones and think, oh yeah, no, that guy nailed it. Yeah, he looks like he's super healthy, mind, body, soul, totally gets it. No, not really. I can't believe he makes that much money off selling these supplements. Now, let's get back to the defamation suit, because Alex Jones did lose the defamation suit, and it's his own doing. It's not only because of the fact that he engaged in defamation, but because he just refused to cooperate with the lawsuit. He refused to hand over documents in the discovery portion of the suit. And so to give you the details on that, the settlement offer in the Connecticut case came from Jones personally, and a constellation of companies associated with him, including Free Speech Systems, InfoWars, InfoWars Health, and Prison Planet TV. It also included something approaching an apology from Jones, reading in full, Mr. Jones extends his heartfelt apology for any distress his remarks caused. Well, that apology wasn't good enough for these family members. They did not want to settle. Now, the families sued Jones in a Connecticut court back in 2018 for repeatedly claiming on air that the shooting was a giant hoax to advance a gun control agenda. They won a default judgment against him in November. Sandy Hook families in a separate case against Jones in Texas also won a default judgment against him in October. Now, why is it a default judgment? Again, because of the fact that he refused to cooperate with the court. When you're being sued and you are asked to hand over documents as part of the discovery process, it's not like a suggestion, you have to do it. And since Alex Jones refused to do it repeatedly, the judge had no choice but to find him guilty of defamation. Now, he's dealing with other legal issues as well, and it's very costly for him, to the tune of $50,000 a day. We'll get to those details in a second, but before we do, I just really want to emphasize the pain and suffering that these parents dealt with as a result of this disgusting grifter, Alex Jones. We're gonna hear from Lenny Posner, who again lost his 6-year-old son, Noah, and he ended up becoming the target of Alex Jones viewers. Let's watch.
I've described it as it's not a wound that heals over and disappears. It's always there. It's carried. This is a wound that you carry for the rest of your life. It's the new normal. And some of the conspiracy theories that came out early on was that I never even attended Noah's funeral because there were no photos or video of me in this reality show for conspiracy theorists.
It should be investigated. All I'm saying is you should investigate what really happened. Most fake mass shootings, they have shooters and then kill a patsy.
In 2014, I reached out to people that went on a show saying, how can you go on a show like that when he's spreading so much misinformation and causing the targeting of victims? And they said, well, that's show business.
Lenny Posner and his family were forced to move 7 times for their own safety because of the people targeting him and his family, the threats that he was dealing with. They were afraid for their lives. And I mean, you see what kind of like rabid lunatic Alex Jones is. Can you imagine what his hardcore fans are like? Can you imagine being targeted by Alex Jones and having his audience members come after you? I mean, and let me just say, if you're forced to move for your own safety 7 different times, that's costly. And so offering a $120,000 settlement for all the pain and suffering this family has dealt with for years is a joke. And I'm glad that they rejected it. I'm glad that it was unanimous. Now, I also want to get to how ridiculous Alex Jones was during his own deposition. He did show up for the deposition, and it was a nightmare because it turns out he's a pretty bad guy. So let's watch that video.
You've done mocking imitations of Sandy Hook parents crying, correct?
No.
I want to play you a video clip too from September 24th, 2014 and November 11th, 2016. Will you play the video clip called Crying?
And then you've got parents laughing on, and then they walk over to the camera and go, and I mean, not just one, but a bunch of parents doing this. Then we see footage of one of the reported fathers of the victims, Robbie Parker, doing classic acting training where he's laughing and joking, and they say, hey, we're live, and he goes, oh. And maybe that's real. I'm sure it is.
You realize now, you were mocking the difficult emotional reactions of people who provably lost their children.
No, I was not mocking. I was showing what people were questioning. It was not to mock the parents. It was showing why people were questioning. It's you that is projecting mocking onto it. I was showing what he did.
Yeah, he was mocking them. I think it's pretty clear what he was doing. But whether he's mocking them or not doesn't matter. It's the narrative that he was putting out there over and over and over again, that the crying was fake, that they were acting, that it was all just a hoax meant to take precious guns away from rabid right wingers who love Alex Jones and his show. I mean, and these people got all riled up. Some of them ended up issuing threats that were so credible that they got prosecuted. But let's go back to Alex Jones and the trouble he's in. So a judge has actually just decided to charge him $50,000 a day because he just refuses to show up to court. Let me give you the details. Jones is in trouble for twice skipping a court-ordered deposition in the Connecticut case. His lawyer said in court filings that Jones was dealing with an undisclosed medical issue. The lawyers for the Sandy Hook families pointed out that Jones wasn't too sick to call into his own show and asked the court to issue a warrant for his arrest. Now, ignore the last part of that graphic because this story's since been updated. The judge has weighed in on what the punishment will be for Alex Jones, and he will be charged $50,000 a day until he shows up to his depositions. So we'll see how that all plays out. He clearly has quite a bit of money selling those, scam supplements. So, maybe this is like a sustainable thing for him, who knows? But I love to see the consequences that he so rightly deserves. Okay, when we have discussions about freedom of speech, we need to keep in mind that there are limitations to all of our freedoms. We don't have the right to go around inciting violence toward people who have already been victimized by a school shooting. We don't have the right to engage in rhetoric that puts other people in harm's way. So for all the clowns out there who keep defending Alex Jones, not because they like him, it's not that I like Alex Jones, it's just that I really value free speech. Well, even under our constitutional rights, what Alex Jones engaged in, not protected by our Constitution. It's not protected by our First Amendment. In fact, it's what I just said is so true that he's actually paying real consequences that have been decided in a court of law. Okay, so I love it. I think that this is what he deserves. I think it sends a clear message to others who decide to add insult to injury and make up all sorts of crazy, inflammatory, garbage stories about victims like the Posner family. And we'll see how long this is gonna go on. But I just love the fact that he thinks he can that he's above the law, doesn't need to show up to court, doesn't need to hand over the documentation that's been ordered by the court. Sorry, he's not above the law. I love seeing this happen to him. He deserves it.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.